Howdy. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about a place called the Three Rivers Petroglyph site in New Mexico. This site is managed by the Bureau of Land Management. It's not a national monument or anything like that. It's about 30 miles north of Alamogordo, so it's in the vicinity of White Sands, and it's not too far from the town of Ruidoso, which is up in the mountains to the east of the site. And the site is located on a place where there's like a confluence of these small rivers that happen right near the site. So thousands of years ago, there was a steady supply of fresh water there. There also happens to be this volcanic rock there that has a coating on it that's a lot of times it's referred to as desert varnish. And what it is there's particles in the air that'll gather on this rock, and they create like a dark coating on the outside of the rock. Native Americans in the Southwest, to my knowledge especially, they like to use this stuff to make drawings, pictures. And at the Three Rivers site, there's over 21,000 of these drawings. There's a hiking trail that goes up a mountain, and there's all kinds of this rock just sticking straight up out of the ground, or there's boulders on the floor, and there's drawings everywhere. There's animals, there's people, there's handprints, there's footprints, there's geometric designs. There are just thousands and thousands and thousands of these petroglyphs everywhere you look. The official word on these petroglyphs is that they started doing this about maybe 2,000 years ago, and then stopped maybe 500 years ago, 400 to 500 years ago. When the Spanish came through, the people there just left. That's the official explanation. About the same time that the conquistadors came up from Mexico in the early 1600s or late 1500s, they stopped having occupation by Native Americans at this site. A couple things about the site. First off, the petroglyphs are wonderful. They're beautiful. I mean, if you are, I'm very much into sort of this prehistory art that's left by the ancestors of the first inhabitants of this continent. And I've done, I did a video several months ago about Seminole Canyon down in South Texas, where they had paintings on the side of this rock shelter, and tried to sort of interpret what those paintings might be representing. Took a lot of studying, a lot of reading, but it was worth it. Anyways, when I get into one of these sites, I try to do, get as much background information on it as I can. A lot of times there are papers that have been published by archaeologists that'll go into great detail about what they think they've found out about a certain site. Blackwater Draw that I did about a month ago, there's a ton of information there. The flint quarries up north of Amarillo. There's tons of information about that site. But this site, there's surprisingly little. Besides, we think they stopped drawing on here about 500 years ago, and they were here for about 1,000 years or whatever, and that's about all they really say. Some say, it goes back 2,000 years, about to the time of the birth of Christ, or some say, 1,000 years ago. And they say, there's also a little a village that got partially excavated in the 1970s, but they found where they think there might have been a couple of buildings at one time that's adjacent to the site, and they stopped. That's it. That's all they give you. So I went here the first time probably 5 or 6 years ago, and then just recently went back when I was in New Mexico visiting these other sites, and we were on our way to Ruidoso, which is not too far away, 45 minutes maybe. So we stopped to walk through the site. It was hot. We didn't get there early enough to really beat the heat, but we gave it the old college try anyway, and took a bottle of water and hiked up the mountain. Or it's kind of on the top of a volcanic ridge, and you've got a wonderful view from up there. But this last time we were there, it was a little like it was dingy, like there was a lot of humidity in the air or something for some reason, which is very unusual for that part of the desert. So anyways, got up there and I'm looking at some of these drawings and just like, what is this? What can this be? Some of it's obvious. Some of it looks like aliens. Some of it it's hard to figure out. There's all kinds of there's big birds. A lot of it looks like it might be like tales from a hunt. There's some kind of animal with a spear or an arrow sticking out of him, and and then the geometric designs are really, really nice. They're neat there, but you have no idea what they mean. You have to believe that, or think. Common sense tells you at one time, the people who made these drawings, a lot of them, not all of them, of course. There's no one set rule for all this, but a lot of them probably related to things that were passed down, like stories or traditions or tales about the time that this person or that person came to visit their tribe, or their version of spirits and spirituality and things that are connected to their own beliefs of creation and the afterlife and that kind of thing. So it's really interesting, and it's really kind of fun for me to try and look at these things and say, hey, this could be this or that. And I just speculate. I'm not an expert. Like I do try to educate myself as much as I can. But anyways, so at this site, I start looking around, and there's like, some of it doesn't look natural to me. Like these are natural rock formations. Some of there's these upright pieces, and some of them look like they've been placed close together, like to make a wall. They look more like these monoliths to me, or maybe, when you've got a rock formation, they call it a megalith. It looks to me like possibly at one time that's what was here. Some of these pieces look like they're tilted and they were notched at one time, so maybe there was a lintel piece that went in across or something, and it's been pulled apart. Some of the drawings on the rocks that are on the ground are sort of crooked, like, well, why would they do it crooked? Why wouldn't they? So it looks like it's been moved or pulled apart at one time. And then I got to looking closer at a couple of the stones, and some of those upright pieces. Now this coating on the outside of the rocks, it takes thousands and thousands of years to form. I've read articles that it can take, not it will, but it could take up to like 40,000 years or so to form a coating as thick as a piece of paper. Sometimes under the right conditions it'll form faster and whatnot, but it takes thousands of years for this coating that they use to make these drawings to form on the outside of these rocks. Some of the rocks, you can see where they were underground, because to form this coating, they have to be exposed to air. So part of the rock that's underneath the soil, or that's buried, that's not exposed to air, it won't get this coating on it. And some of the rocks, you can see where recent weather events have sort of washed away the ground, and so the bottom part of that rock doesn't have the coating on it. It's like I said, it's on top of a ridge. There's no plants. So, and this whole area is prone to flash flooding. When they do get a little thunderstorm or something, a half inch of rain, everything floods because there's just no drainage. So the ground is washed away, and it appears to me that, that's why there's a part of this rock at the bottom that doesn't have a coating on it. So, okay, that's interesting stuff. And then I start looking closer, and I see in a couple of spots where it's washed away, I can look under the bottom of the upright stones, and little stones have been placed under those stones. Like at the bottom, it's not flat, it comes sort of to a point, or it's on an uneven piece of ground, and little stones have been placed there to hold it upright. Like at one time, stones were placed under some of these upright pieces. There may have been some there already that were upright, but stones have been placed under some of these upright pieces to hold them upright, and then they were backfilled, and that happened before there was a coating that takes thousands of years. I mean, could take 10, 20,000 years to get a coating thick enough to draw in on these stones. It could take longer, but, say it happened fairly quick and it took 25,000 years. That would mean that that stone was placed there 20,000 years ago, and it was a monolith. It was placed upright, like Stonehenge or something. These are big rocks. These aren't as big as Stonehenge or anything, but they're pretty big rocks. They weigh a ton, couple of tons each probably. So, and to think that maybe, there might be other explanations for this. I don't know. There probably is. I mean, because obviously somebody probably saw the same thing I saw and thought it wasn't a big deal. But a little bit about Three Rivers. When you're standing on top of this mesa, and you look to the east, you're looking up into it's the Sacramento Mountains, I believe. That's where there's a huge Apache Native American reservation up there. They've been there for thousands and thousands of years. Just ask any one of them and they'll tell you. And then when you look to the west, there's a big valley, and on the west side of that big valley there's an ancient lake bed. It's called Lake Otero, and Lake Otero is on the very northwest portion of White Sands, which is it might be a national park now. It was a national monument for a long time. And they did missile testing at White Sands. If you were standing on this ridge the day they tested the first nuclear weapon at the Trinity site, you would have seen the mushroom cloud. You might have heard the bang. I don't know. It's close to that area. Recently, in that area, on that northwest portion of White Sands, in the bed of dried up Lake Otero, they found human footprints that date back 22,000 years. They found footprints alongside those of giant sloth, woolly mammoth, animals that have been extinct since the end of the last ice age. This happened at the last glacial maximum. This area at that time would have been a lot wetter, a lot cooler. This would have been a good climate to live in and probably provided almost year-round food sources. And the area I'm talking about at Three Rivers, those rivers would have been active at that time. They would have had water flowing in them. So you'd have a year-round water source. You would have year-round food sources. I'm not sure about the stone, if there was good tool-making stone available. But the Blackwater Draw site is about 130 miles away. Now, the footprint site's about 35 miles away. The Blackwater Draw site, where they found the first Clovis tools dated back 13,000 years, that's about 120, 130 miles northeast of this site. And we know there was people there that had the stone to make tools. They had brought it in from other places. There was already trade routes established 13,000 years ago. That's part of what made the whole Clovis first thing ridiculous. You know, it's like, how would Clovis culture show up in 4,000 different places, thousands of miles apart, all at the same time? And that's the first people that were here. No, that doesn't work. Sometimes it seems like science, they get all the evidence they can get, and they overlook one big thing. Common sense seems to vanish sometimes. Anyways, so getting back to this site, to think that there were not people at this site 10, maybe even 15, maybe even 20,000 years ago is kind of ridiculous. There were people here, there were people there, there was water here, there was game here. They had access to stone through established trade routes to make their tools. Why wouldn't there be people here? I mean, really. So I really think this is one site that needs to have some further investigation done. The problem is that investigations lately are more tied to, grants. Like, what will the federal government or what will the state government pay me to do this investigation? You have to tie it to something, and prehistory of the United States, there's no money in it. If you could say something like, well, we want to study the effects of climate change on the ancient culture of the Three Rivers Petroglyph site, then hey, you might be able to sell that to the people who got the checkbook and then get some money to do an investigation. But just to have the information, just to know the history, politicians aren't interested in that right now. They're just not. And that's just the way it is. You've got some universities that have archaeology programs that will themselves sponsor enough to do digs in the summer or get their students on a dig too, and the students are great about volunteering on that and helping out, and that's wonderful. But to do a full-fledged, we're going to spend 2 years excavating this site, something like what happened at Blackwater Draw, or what happened at the Galt site, or what happened down in Eagle's Nest Canyon down in Valverde County on the Rio Grande in Texas. That just doesn't happen very often these days. There's just there's no money in it, and so it gets pushed to the side. I hope that somebody will go take a look up at Three Rivers and either say, well, this is, the wind blew stones this big underneath the edge of that, come on, and see what's there. And I would think that with what's been found lately at White Sands, I know they're doing new excavations at Blackwater Draw. They think they might have found another hunting camp. But this is a place that may have been sort of a permanent settlement, which means if you start digging into it, there may be just a ton of stuff there, more like the Galt site and less like Blackwater Draw, which was more of a hunting camp. So let's hope that someday they do some more investigation and find out exactly what's here and what it consists of. And if you get a chance to visit, stay the night in Alamogordo, you can go to White Sands and you can go to the Three Rivers site. You can drive up in the mountain there and go to Cloudcroft, go up to Ruidoso, beautiful towns. Ruidoso, there's a place, Inn of the Gods, it's a big resort that the Apaches own, and they use the money to help get things that the tribe needs, and they have a casino and restaurants and all kinds of things there. There was a horse race track. There is a horse race track in Ruidoso, but they had some bad flash flooding there about a month ago, and I believe the racetrack suffered a lot of damage, so I'm not sure when that's going to be open again. There's a space museum in Alamogordo. So, hey, it's worth a trip. Go spend a weekend or a few days in Alamogordo and check it out. If you're into history like I am, there's quite a bit to see there. And that's all I got for now, so take it easy, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.